want to save your marriage, there are really just two things that your wife really needs from you. And I bet you have no idea that you're not really offering it. And the first thing she needs from you is acceptance. She has to feel that you actually accept how she's feeling. And what acceptance means is it means no pushback. Now, before you jump down my throat, that doesn't mean that I want you to act like a simp and pretend like you have no opinion. That's not what accepting her feelings means. It just means that realizing that her perspective of things isn't wrong just because she thinks and feels something totally different than what you think and what you feel. Just because it's different doesn't mean that it actually needs to be challenged. And so one of the biggest misconceptions that I've noticed men have is they really think that accepting her perspective means agreeing with it. So for an example, if your wife tells you that she's unhappy in the marriage, that doesn't mean that you're supposed to accept the fact that you were a terrible husband. No, of course not. It just means accepting that she's unhappy. Those are two very different things. And this is where so many conversations are really damaging to relationships, because your wife can say that she feels alone. But what you're hearing is you're hearing criticism. You're feeling attacked. You hear her saying that you're a bad husband. So instead of getting curious as to why she's feeling alone and asking her where that's coming from, you instead start defending yourself. And then you start racking your brain looking for evidence. You say, well, I spend time with you. I provide for the family. We just went on vacation. But notice what's happening. She's trying to communicate an emotional experience while you're trying to prove to her that her emotional experience is incorrect. When you hear people say to create emotional safety, all that means is listening and accepting that what she thinks and what she feels can actually be very different from how you think and how you feel, and that it's no need to start listing evidence or start listing all the reasons in why what she's feeling is wrong. That's all emotional safety is. Because what I've noticed that a major contributor to relationships breaking down is when a woman comes and she tries to communicate her feelings, the man immediately starts explaining why what she's feeling is wrong. A feeling is not a fact. It can't be wrong. But a man will explain to her why she's looking at it the wrong way, why that's not what he meant, why her perspective isn't accurate, rather than just accepting that because her emotional experience is different from yours doesn't make it wrong. And after that happens over and over again in a relationship, eventually she's going to get to a point where she starts to say, never mind. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. And then years later, the husband's left thinking that, oh man, my wife never communicates with me anymore. Never really understanding why she stopped communicating with him. She just stopped because she got tired of being told that her perspective of things is wrong. So that's really the first thing she needs from you if you really want to save your marriage. And the second thing she needs from you is she needs to know that you understand her feelings. And this has got to be where I see guys struggle the most. Because most men are very logical. They understand the events, they understand the situation, they understand what happened, they understand the outcome. But understanding how the outcome made her feel are two very different things. So for an example, your wife says she feels alone in the marriage. Most men internally immediately start reviewing the evidence. I spend time with her. I provide for the family. We just went on vacation. I text her on my lunch breaks. Their brain is trying to determine whether the statement she made is accurate or not. So as he reviews the evidence internally inside of himself, he starts to ask, well, how can she feel alone? I spend time with her. How can she feel alone? We just went on vacation. How can she feel alone? I text her on my lunch breaks. How can she feel alone? We just had date night last week. But here's the thing, guys. Women aren't asking you to fact check her experience to see if it's accurate or not. She's trying to help you understand her experience, and she needs you to understand her feelings from that experience. And those are two completely different conversations, because over here, your conversation is about the facts that you take in from your perspective. And the other conversation is about the feelings that she has based on her own experience from her perspective. And like I said, most wives aren't looking for fact checkers. They're looking for their husband to understand what life's like in their shoes. And this is where I see so many relationships struggling, because the man understands what happened, but the woman wants him to understand how what happened made her feel. They're not the same thing. So let's use emotional safety as an example. Most men hear about emotional safety and they think that that means learning how not to react, learning how not to feel the need to defend themselves, learning how to sit quietly while she voices her concerns, learning how to basically just take it. So they spend hours researching the right thing to say. They learn validation techniques. They learn communication strategies. They learn how to sound understanding. But here's the problem, guys. Most of you are not with dumb women. Many of you are with very intelligent women who can tell the difference between a man who actually understands how she feels rather than a man who just memorized a script. Because there's a total different energy behind it. Because there's a total difference in saying you understand and actually understanding. And let's take this a bit deeper, because most men genuinely believe they understand. They understand why she's upset, but they still don't understand how that experience actually made her feel. And that's the piece that she's looking for, guys. Because if she doesn't feel understood at that level, it doesn't matter what choices that you make, because they're not going to feel believable to her. Even if you're showing up differently, even if you're trying, even if you've stopped the behaviors that you know were destructive, because she's still looking at you, wondering if you actually know why those behaviors were destructive and what it felt like to actually live with them. And so most men understand the concepts extremely well, but they still struggle understanding how all of it was actually making her feel. And that's why when guys are trying to save their relationship, why they struggle and why movement seems really slow or it's non-existent, because she needs to feel that you understand what she was actually living with and how it felt deep inside of her. Because when she feels that you actually understand her and when you can see things from her perspective is when she'll really believe that you're going to stop doing those behaviors that were pushing her away and making her feel like that to begin with. Because if you don't understand how it made her feel, how can you truly long-term stop making those same decisions? She needs to feel that you understand that there was an emotional impact that it had on her. And that's usually where most men get stuck, because it's not something that you can learn from watching a couple YouTube videos or memorizing a script. It's a skill. And like all skills, skills need to be practiced. You have to learn how to stop looking at situations from just your perspective and begin being able to look at them from her perspective as well. Because only when she feels truly accepted and understood in her own feelings do your new choices actually feel believable to her. And if you're struggling with this right now in your own relationship and you really know that you are kind of caught up in your own perception of things and you really understand the events and the outcomes and the situations of what happened, but you realize that you're struggling at really looking at it from her perspective and really trying to put yourself in her shoes, apply to work with me. I'll put the link in the description of the video and in the comments. I really hope this video was helpful, guys. If so, hit a like for me and subscribe to the channel for more videos like it. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, and let's really focus on falling back in love.